Hello, everybody. My name is Damian Gonzalez.
And I'm Anna Gronholm.
And we're with the IREM Georgia PR Committee for 2022. Today, we have Michael McCreary with McCreary Realty, who is stepping into our spotlight. How are you doing today, Michael?
I'm doing fantastic. It's great to be with a couple of Bulldogs. Love it. Go Dogs.
Absolutely.
Go Dogs.
Go Dogs.
For those who do not know, Michael is near and dear to the IREM Georgia community as he served as our chapter president in 1992, and he continues to be an involved member and instructor today. Aside from IREM, Michael has been the president/owner of McCreary Realty for over 30 years. While being in this industry, he has racked up many certifications, including his CPM. He has also won the IREM Professional Achievement Award in 2014. Michael, I know this short bio does not begin to describe the impact that you've had in this industry, so we are so glad that you're joining us today so that we can all learn more about your wonderful story.
Well, it is great to be with you too, and I appreciate the opportunity to talk about IREM Georgia, or as I affectionately remember it, the Greater Atlanta chapter of IREM, chapter number 67. And then it became the Atlanta chapter, and then it became the Georgia chapter. So like all good things in life, most people think there's only two things certain in life, which is death and taxes. There's actually three. And the third thing is change. And so if you're not adaptable to change, you're going to get left behind. And so that's how I'm. Most people my age are not nearly as techno proficient as I am. So I'm happy that to continue in that change format.
Yes, and the change is always about being uncomfortable, and you have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. So
That's
we're
right.
always continuing to learn and continuing to adapt and develop.
Absolutely.
Well, we'll go ahead and jump right on into it.
Sure. Let's do it.
Let's see here. We know real estate has been near and dear to you and your family's heart for some years now with McCreary Realty. What made you decide to begin a career in property management?
Wow, this is a little bit of a lengthy story because it goes all the way back to the year after I was born. My grandfather, who was originally a dairy farmer, started a real estate company in Marietta with a partner in 1956. And shortly thereafter, my mother and her four brothers joined their father in the real estate business. And back then, real estate was much like used car sales. You only sold what you had listed. So there was no MLS, there was no cooperation amongst brokers. And so over time, what they ended up doing was taking houses in trade. I mean, I even have a contract where my grandfather took a mule team and rigging in on trade for somebody who wanted a house.
How about that?
Talk about horse trading, right? Well, but that's the way business was done back in the 50s and early 60s before we became really part of Atlanta. Cobb County was still a very rural agrarian society during those era, and so we're not that anymore. We're quite the urban community now. But my father joined in my mother and his four brother-in-laws in around 62, 63, and my grandfather came to him in 65 and said, "We joined the MLS. Lockheed's going gangbusters. We own all these houses. There's a lot of potential for rental market now. So we're going to convert a bunch of these into rental, and we want you to manage them." So my father started managing them in 65 when I was 10 years old. So I basically grew up in the property management business. I painted houses. I cut grass. I cleaned out trash. I helped with set outs. I did all kinds of stuff, planted mailboxes, whatever it took to help manage those properties, including nights and weekends emergencies, which were phone calls and usually interrupting family dinner. So several times I would answer the phone. Well, no, Dad can't come to the phone, but how can I help you? So I learned a lot. However, I wasn't interested in the family business originally. My interest was music. I played the French horn and ended up going to Berry College on scholarship to become a band director.
Oh.
Awesome.
And after 3 or 4 years at Berry, I just got discouraged. It didn't seem like it was going to be the right path for me. And I left at that point, went into retail sales, and I worked for a couple of family businesses. I'm going, I have a family business. I'm in sales. Why not? So in 78, I got my real estate license and started doing sales. Did really well. And then a little thing called Jimmy Carter and 21% interest rates put up a giant roadblock in 81. And so I, at that point in time, had a child, a wife and a child. I needed to do something to make money. So I actually applied for and got a temporary job with Cobb County Tax Assessor's Office doing tax appraising. So that was fun. And
Fun,
then
yeah.
yeah, and then later on in on May 15th of '82, I joined my parents in the property management division of the original family business called Jackson and King. After my grandfather passed away in 1987, we decided to break up the family businesses rather than the family. And my mom, dad, and I took the property management division and rebranded it as McCreary Realty Management. But it was essentially the exact same thing. And so we've existed like that since 1990, now coming up on our 32nd year. In business. So I'm third generation in the family business. And now my daughter, Bess, who is also a CPM, she went through the Next Gen program as well as the AMO Fast Track and got her CPM designation. And so I'm very proud of her, and she'll be running the family business when I step aside and retire.
Well, congratulations to you. Congratulations to her. That is an incredible story. You've been learning and learning and learning for years.
That's right. That's right. And the one thing I've learned is you will never know enough. Just when I think I've heard it all, there's always something else. You start messing with where and how people live, you figure it out how weird society really is. So
we're all just very special, Michael.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are.
Always something to learn.
There's, like I said, in this industry, you never know what you're going to come into day after day. There's always something new. So
right.
Well, alrighty then. Let's move on to our next question here. What is your favorite part of residential property management?
Well, my emphasis is in single family rentals and always has been. So I was looked at quite oddly by most of the property managers and members of IREM way back in the 80s when I first started doing this. But I was doing it at such a volume that it made sense that I could do these things. Plus, I had taken enough appraisal classes that I understood the cash flow analysis and the NOI and valuation, all of that good stuff. So it really helped me expand on that by taking the CPM courses. But I think my very favorite is working with clients. My typical client owns anywhere from 1 to 5 homes. That's their single largest investment next to their 401k and their principal residence, and helping them become really good investors. And a lot of times, my job is to save them from themselves because they don't make good decisions, because they make them emotionally. And I'm able to help them make rational business type decisions and help them understand that you need to operate this like a business, particularly when it's the people moving out of a house that was once the family home. Now it's going to be the family business, and disconnecting the emotions from that. So so it really is very much a continuation of my passion for teaching, because I get to work with these clients and help educate them into becoming great investors.
It's really all about just helping them be the best that they can be, and
absolutely
have that foundation for them to be able to continue to grow and all of that. So that's really incredible. So when we were speaking earlier, you said that you have experienced a lot, to say the least, in your years in the industry. So what has been the most impactful or eventful thing that has happened while you've been working in this fast-paced and ever-growing industry?
Well, the market fluctuations have been ginormous. I actually sold a duplex to an investor and closed in December of 1981. And it made economic sense for this guy to buy this duplex. And he paid $75,000, put 15% down, and got a 17.5% FHA investor mortgage. That's credit card rates. But it made sense because earlier in 81, Reagan had passed his Tax Reform Act, and he created incredible investment opportunities for small investors in real estate. You could instead of straight line depreciation, you got double declining balance depreciation, and you could throw in cost of components. So literally that duplex, instead of 29 and a half years like a straight line, could be depreciated in a little over 7 years. That's some tax savings.
Yes.
Doesn't exist anymore. That got changed in 86, 87, but it was heady times for us. The other one was weathering all these difficult markets where we had the interest rates going up, interest rates coming down, the dot-com bust around 9/11. 9/11 just accelerated the recession that we had there. Coming up out of that, we instead of building an industry of good economic generators, we built it on the back of home builders. And so all of a sudden, lenders were giving away free money. If you had a pulse and could fog a mirror, you too could get a 100% mortgage. And then the Great Recession happened, and weathering that, all of a sudden your house that was worth 200,000 is worth 80. Right. And our market just exploded because people still needed to move, still needed to do something, but they weren't going to write a check to go to closing as a seller. So we took on a lot of properties, and that was another incredible opportunity. I did videos, did all kinds of things in that era to help support educating property owners on moving from the family home into the family business. So those are probably my big headliners. I will tell you right now, the market that we're in with the supply-demand issues that we have on leasing properties, I've never experienced anything like this. I can't sometimes figure out how high up is to increase rents, because the historical analysis that's only 2 or 3 months old is already out of date. When you put I had a 3-bedroom, 1-bath house here in Marietta that came off of lease at $11.95. We spent a good bit of money doing some renovations to it. I put it on at $15.95 here just about a month ago, and I got my first applications within 4 hours. I rented it for too little. Oh my gosh. So you just never know what kind of market we're in. The market we're in right now reminds me so much of the historicals of Southern California in the late 60s, early 70s, where you could buy in Anaheim a 3-bedroom, 1-bath house near Disney for $20,000 in 1969, and by 1975 it was worth $200,000. And that's the kind of market that we're in right now, all over the place. I saw another statistic that showed the home building construction has been so small in the last 10 years in comparison to the historics over the decades prior. And so between that and millennials and the baby boomlet, Gen Zs, right?
Mm-hmm. All of the generations.
Yeah, all of those generations, the ones that weren't even here at 9/11. Mm-hmm. So those guys are now coming out and they're creating households. And the baby boomlet is bigger than the baby boom.
Right.
So, yeah. So the demand now is incredible. And then you throw in all of the other economic issues, and I think our housing market is going to be strong for the next 5 to 10 years, but trying to absorb all of this demand and work through all of the supply chain issues and labor issues.
Yes, there's just a lot that is going on right now.
Ton.
And
yes,
so you said that you like to use historical data to kind of gauge where everything's going to go, but with everything being so up and down and everything's coming at you left and right, how are you managing that? Like, how do you know where to put your rents? Or is it just kind of...
A little bit of it is, let's try it out and see. And see what kind of demand we get. And it is a little trial and error because it has moved so fast, and really has moved fast in what, 12, 14 months. It's amazing. The type of response we've seen. So again, we look at the historics, we look at what we've done, the great news, our market, we're seeing that most of the type of product we manage, which is middle class America single family homes, that whether they're in Marietta, Kennesaw, Smyrna, Ackworth, Woodstock, East Paulding, those areas, they're all very similar. So as far as quality of location is concerned, because you all remember this, the three most important quotients of value in real estate, right? Location, location, location. And you can fix everything else, but you can never fix location.
Right.
So as long as you've got great location, you're good. And that's the way we approach it. It's amazing when people are looking to buy rental properties, they ask me, well, what do you look for? I said, I look for the same thing an owner occupant's looking for. Because if it's valuable to them, it's going to be valuable to a prospective resident. Because the resident renting a single family house versus a multifamily product, they're wanting to emulate home ownership. And they end up being a longer term resident, 3 to 5 years, instead of 9 to 18 months in a multifamily product.
I think it's really important, like you said, to put yourself in the shoes of the person who's looking for the home. Because if you wouldn't want what you're offering, then neither will they. So you need to make sure that that product is up to their standard and even beyond that to offer a great product.
Yes, I call this studying being great students of the psychology of the way people shop for, view, apply, lease, move in, live, and move out of rental houses. If you can follow that mindset all the way through, you can start plugging a lot of holes without running out of the duct tape that you're using on the floor to plug them up, and you can make it a much more successful venture for everybody.
Mm-hmm. So how do you kind of balance having that kind of side of things where it's almost more personal and also running it as a business, I guess?
Right. How do you scale it?
Right.
Exactly. We're very much a boutique management company, so we're not going to be the 1,000 home management company. We never will be, and it's because this business is always a people business. No matter how much technology is out there, no matter how much you're doing online, and how much we're doing things via Zoom and all the other avenues that we're using these days, it's still very much a people business. And when you're working with the types of clients and the products that we are, they're not institutional investors. They're not just strictly bottom line NOI folks. And while that's important to them, it's not really, it's not always the number one thing. And so they're concerned about cost. They're concerned about the quality of the people that are going to be living there. They're leaving neighbors behind, and they want to make sure their neighbors aren't going to be disturbed because a tenant's going to be in the property. And using that T word is emblematic of how a lot of society looks at residents that are in rental property, that they're second-class citizens. And we're seeing legislation all over the place that's trying to limit rentals in certain locations because of that.
Yeah, there's a lot that goes into everything that you do, that we do in the industry and are going to do. I'm sure it's going to be changing as well. So with that, like I said, lots of changes. So what do you wish you had known when you entered this industry?
Well,
it was when you were very young.
I was 23, had a lot more hair, and it was darker. That's for sure. But what I wish I had known at that time was how complex the process really is, and the depth of knowledge and width of knowledge that's required of a property manager these days. When you start and break down the job description of a property manager, oh my goodness, what is required of them, the knowledge that's required, the everyday just seat of the pants, you got to know it type of knowledge. It's incredible. And that's the one thing I really didn't know coming in, and learned very quickly, particularly when I started taking IREM classes. That really helped me out a lot to expand my knowledge.
It is crazy how many hats that the on-site team, just everybody on the on-site team, has to wear and be able to ebb and flow with. And it's really incredible, and it takes a really special person to be in that position.
Right. One of the best definitions I've ever heard of a property manager is very simple, two words: problem solver. Because frankly, if there's no problems to be solved, we have no jobs. Because if everybody honored their leases, honored their agreements, moved out, and the place was, white glove spotless all the time, you and I would have nothing to do. They paid the rent on the first without fail. Checks never bounced. No, never hide dogs or other occupants. No phantom ESAs. All the other things that we have to deal with on a regular basis. If you can imagine life, what that would be like, even for just 1 month, we would. I mean, what would we do with our time?
There's no telling, but it's a good
Exactly.
thing that we like to learn, and we will solve those problems, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. So my best advice to anyone getting into this business: increase your width and breadth of knowledge of the property management industry, how buildings are built, learn how things work, how they work together, become a great problem solver with maintenance, troubleshooter, preventative maintenance, all of those things, and then problem solving with dealing with relationships with the residents and lease compliance. That's always a big one. The credit card industry has done us no favors, because all you have to do is call and say, "I'm sorry I'm late. Can you waive that late fee for me?" Boom, done. We can't do that. We can't waive late fees like that. We've got a little thing called fair housing out there. If I waive it for that one, I got to waive it for everybody. So, yeah.
Well, like we were talking earlier, I'm sure over the years you've received many, many awards and many, many certifications. So what is one of the ones that you're most proud of in your career?
I will tell you, it's the CPM itself. It was a lot of hard work to get that. And because that was prior to computers, PCs. Just hardly didn't exist. Everybody had mainframes, but the PC had just really gotten out on everybody's desk around 85, 86, 87. Prior to that, it was mainframes. We didn't even have our first computer for our property management company until 1983. We were on the McBee OneWrite system, which was a ledger card system that was, it goes back to Moses. I don't know, but it was old. And but it worked. It worked. And so, but you were unable to track information like you do today. You just didn't have that capability. That's one of the things that technology has done for us. There's more computing power in my phone than there were in all of the PCs and computers I bought up until about a few years ago. It's amazing. In just one device. I've got the world in this device. Hey Google, Siri, I can find out anything I want. It's amazing what's capabilities that we have now. And that's the same with our clients, and it's the same with our residents, our customers. They can learn more about us, and that reputation piece, boy, is that an accountability factor right there. How much do you love Yelp? It's fine for restaurants, terrible for property managers.
Yeah, people don't really. I know we as a younger generation, we just don't know what that looked like back then. We've always had Google. We've always had that opportunity to just get on a computer and look up anything that we needed at the palm of our hand. So to know that you went through that and no computer in sight, I definitely give you kudos to that. That is not something I think I could do.
Well, you do what was available because it was the technology at the time.
Right.
Here's a more even funny story, okay? And it's about the fax machine. Fax machines just started getting into small businesses in the mid-'80s. And I was just after both of my parents saying, look, we've got to get a fax machine. We're missing opportunities by not having one.
The next best thing.
It was the next best thing. It was like getting a color copier, that kind of thing. And so it was $1,000 to buy one. $1,000. And it was thermal paper. It wasn't even real paper, and it came on a roll. And the reason it was $1,000 because I paid the extra $100 for the automatic paper cutter. So every time a page came through, it would cut it. So we didn't have, the 5-mile long the document of 20 pages to have to cut apart. But within 3 months, both of my parents came to me one day together, and I'm thinking, oh, I am in trouble. And they said, no, you're not in trouble. We just came to tell you that we had no idea how we were conducting business without the fax machine. So it just gives you an idea of how technology in the moment can be so life-changing for our industry.
Absolutely. I mean, technology is so ever changing, and just in the last 5 to 10 years, technology has grown exponentially.
Yes.
There's just so much that we can do now with, like you said, the PCs and the phones that we have on a day-to-day basis.
Well, and you remember I told you like the dot-com bust, that 9/11, when that happened, accelerated the depression, that was the recession that came because of the dot-com bust. That's what COVID has done for us. It's accelerated the way we do business, this virtual thing, because people had no choice. They had to become adept at it. And the ability to be on your phone in some remote location and be just like you were at your desk.
Yeah.
Mind blowing.
Wow.
I thought about it 5 years ago.
Yeah. You wouldn't even think about that. We all were moving everything to the cloud. We're all getting ready. In fact, what it was 2 years ago on the 15th, sent everybody home. Can't come back to work. We're locking down for 2 weeks to, what was it, to edge the curve, blow the curve, live the curve, work the curve, whatever it was, that turned into 2 months. And it just changed everything. The beautiful thing for us about our staff is that the work got done. People loved working from home, and so we've actually changed our business model. I'm giving up this 3,000 square foot office that we're in, and we're going to move back into our original 1,000 square foot office that we own. And so I'm going to be cutting out a bunch of money in lease and utilities and maintenance on this space, and I'm going to be over in the space that I own, because the people are only coming in a couple of times a week for 3 or 4 hours and then doing the rest of their work from home. It's been fantastic. And people are the staff's very accepting of it and are excited about the move.
You're decreasing those expenses.
Absolutely. Got to watch that NOI, baby.
Well, that's a great segue into our next question here. Talking about the fax machine and talking about new business models that new companies are starting to have to adapt to and change. What is a trend in the industry now that you think will be really beneficial to industry within the next 3 years?
I think it's going to be more advances in technology. Is going to be one of them, and it's called machine learning and artificial intelligence. That's the next thing. Absolutely. We're already seeing it in so many things. We're starting to see it in processing applications. We've got predictive models now that we did not have before, algorithms that we didn't have the technology to run before. Now we can run them without waiting. Everything is becoming more and more instantaneous, and that's huge. The second thing is, believe it or not, remote team members, or also called virtual assistants, where we're utilizing folks that can do the back office work, that can do the data entry portions and things like that, so that we can use our boots on the ground for their knowledge and skill set without having to reduce them down to data entry and various other repetitive tasks. If it's something that can be done sitting in front of the computer, it's something that you can offload onto a remote team member. And the best part about all of that is that it just lifts everyone. And instead of virtual assistants, we call them remote team members, because they're just as much a part of my office as the folks that are here locally. And they do incredible work. I've never had people work more diligently and be more accepting of any assignment and get it done so fast. It's amazing. So, and come up with some ideas. A couple of them have come up with ideas we hadn't even thought about that improved our processes. So, great tool. And then affordability. I have 2 remote team members for less than what it would cost for me to have 1 boot on the ground here.
Yeah, I mean, I know just in my experience in the last couple months, especially after everything had opened back up after the COVID swing. I was on LinkedIn, just looking at different jobs and things like that. And almost, I would say 50% of them were remote opportunities. And beforehand, I had never, it was few and far between that you would see a remote opportunity, especially for property management companies, because a lot of it is that client to client interaction or that people interaction that you have. So now it's just becoming, you know, another application or another job that you can apply to, and you could work for a property management company over on the West Coast, but still be here in Georgia. So
Absolutely. Your hours will stink, but otherwise it's great.
yeah, yeah.
You'll work till 9 o'clock at night. But that's what's amazing. Our both of ours are in Philippines, and they work. They're 11 hours time difference, so they work overnight while we're here during our daytime. But that's
power to them.
yeah, but that's typical to the industry over there. One of the number one jobs in the Philippines is call centers, and they all work at, you know, and so many of them are U.S. based companies. They work those hours. They're used to them, and so when they get to work for a management company like ours, it's considered one of the top 1% of the jobs available in the call industry world, and they get to work from home. They don't have to commute. They're not in a little tiny 3x3 cubicle, and they get benefits, and they get about almost twice the pay, if not more, than what they were getting when they were having to commute 2 hours to work 12 hours in a call center. So it's a wonderful tool. Wonderful tool.
And it's a good opportunity for them, but as well as all of us here. And it'll be a good thing for us to be able to offer a better customer experience.
Absolutely.
And deliver all of that, and just be able to be more with our residents and prospective residents and all of that.
Yep, absolutely.
So we'll see what happens, but
yes, ma'am.
It's really exciting stuff, and I think it's going to be a good thing for the industry. But kind of moving on into IREM, Georgia.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So we have spoken about your CPM. So you were penned a certified property manager in 1987.
Yes.
In the beginning of those PC eras, I'm sorry. And you have been a president, a regional vice president, and an instructor for IREM. So how did you get involved with IREM Georgia, and how do you continue to be involved today?
Sure. Well, being a licensed sales agent, my company was also members of the Cobb Association of Realtors, local, state, national. And so one of the nice things about IREM is that they're an affiliate of NAR, National Association of Realtors. And I was searching anywhere that I could find formal property management education, because there wasn't anything locally, nothing at the tech schools around here. Online didn't exist. I'm sorry, it didn't exist in 1983, okay? But I found the brochure on IREM and started looking at it and looking at the course, what was required to become a CPM. And so I started my journey in 1984, taking the old course 301, marketing for residential properties. It was a 5-day course held here in Atlanta. Then the next year I took course 400, which is the big finance class at the time, and that was also here in Atlanta. And then took course 501, which was the management plan course. Back then, there was no opt-out, no other way to accomplish this other than to actually write the management plan. And so you attended the class for 2.5 days. They sent you home with specifications that you had to use, and you had 60 days to write the plan and submit it.
A take-home test.
Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah, new definition there.
Absolutely. And they changed them from class to class. So my class, for example, they specified the inflation rate at 2%. So we were able to. That's one of the things that way you couldn't just copy somebody's work. But I mean, mine was 200 and some odd pages long, plus all of the backup information that I had to type up. I learned that after the first 2 chapters not to handwrite it out and then type it. I just started composing on the keyboard, and that made a huge difference.
If you were writing 250 pages, your arm would be about to fall off.
Yeah. So got it done, got it bound, and sent it off. And I was very pleased to be awarded with a Pass Superior. And with that Pass Superior, I was invited to join the publishing committee at IREM National. And so I attended my first national conference in June of 1987, or 88, June of 88. And then that year, chapter members who were in leadership saw that I was there. What are you doing here? So I explained, and they said, we think we have a job for you. And so that next year I was chair of the education committee. And back then we put on lots of national courses, and so helped put all those together. And then in that was in 89, 1990, we started changing the leadership, and I still did education, but I was a VP. In 91, I was a VP, and then 92, I was president. And at that year, we completely revamped and started doing the vice president of this division, of that division, of this division, and had 35 committees. We had a wonderful year. In fact, if you look over my shoulder, right over there, that's the Gold Award for our chapter. We were a group 6, so there were 6 divisions of chapters around the country, and we were in the very large category. And we won the gold, and found out that we just barely missed being the winner overall of all the gold winners. So we were just barely second in that. Very, very proud of that and all the relationships that built for me. The very next year, we won gold again. And then I was VP in 94, 95, and was able to put on a couple of great conferences, one in Jupiter, Florida, one in Orlando, Florida, first one ever at Disney. So that was a lot of fun. We were able to get passes to what was then Pleasure Island in downtown Disney and give out to everybody. So lots of different fun things that we're able to do, but probably the most important thing to me out of all that process was obtaining my CPM and what it meant for me in my business and personally, what I was able to do that. There was a speaker the year I was president named, his name will come to me in a moment, that is an educator at Georgia Tech and has written a book called The Achievement Factors, Dr. Gene Greisman. And he had postulated a formula in there that I've since have learned has become quite common, and that is that a definition of good luck. Good luck is when perspiration and preparation meets opportunity. Yeah. And that was just one of the most eye-opening events for me right then. And I wouldn't have had that if I had not been active in IREM at that point in time.
Mm-hmm. That's what IREM does for anyone who's involved. It just opens up the door to so many opportunities that you had no idea were there. So we're very thankful that you've paved the way for people like Damien and I to now be involved, and we're very proud of you.
Well, thank you.
Me and Anna actually had the opportunity to go to the Global Summit this last in Vegas, and we went in not really knowing what to expect, and came out with so many new relationships with people from around the nation in so many different facets of the residential property management sector. There were lawyers and there were property managers, but there were also asset managers and investors as well. So it really was a great opportunity, especially coming from a student, getting to see all those different sides and getting all those different connections as well. So
absolutely. Well, and I'm sure one of the things you were able to do was to start to build your group of friends and colleagues that you can call on from around the country, not just locally here in Georgia. That was one of the biggest things I got. For example, the classes I took, they always had people from other states in them. And when I did the management plan, there was a lady from Pennsylvania and a guy from where is he from? He was also happened to be from Pennsylvania, but she was in West Pennsylvania. He was around Philadelphia. Anyway, we collaborated a little bit on our management plans by critiquing each other. Remember that fax machine? Well, we would fax our pages to each other, and we would write, critique them and such for grammar and content, that sort of thing. But the funny thing is, all three of us took completely different approaches to solving the problem with that particular property, which was the Nathaniel Hawthorne and Nathaniel Hawthorne and I can't remember the name of them. But anyway, there were 2 small buildings in downtown Denver, Colorado, in the Capitol Hill district. Even though we went to Florida to learn about them, and I'm in Atlanta, and I had to write about them. So.
I think that's also what's special about our industry is it's very small. Like you think that it's very large, but getting to meet all of the people that are in it, you really realize how interconnected it is.
Yes.
It's like, oh, you know, so-and-so, so do I, like, blah, 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 blah.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot to learn from that. And then if you are ever in Colorado or decide to develop there, or you're going to buy a property there, you can say, hey, call them up and just
Absolutely.
they'll give you the spiel.
And you know, I took advantage of that in 1996. I got approached by a couple of homeowners associations about managing their association. Never done anything like that before. And I contacted 10 different IREM members from around the country, picking their brain about starting a homeowners association division in my firm. And it was the best thing I ever did, because all but one of them said, when I asked them, if you could do it over again, what would you do differently? And 9 out of the 10 said, I'd never manage condominiums unless they were large high-rises. They said the garden style condos are just so hard to manage, and so they're so difficult emotionally to deal with, and that burns out managers really, really fast. And so I took that to heart, and I still to this day have never managed a condominium.
You learned.
Won't do it. And because of that, I still have employees that have worked with me for years and years and years, and that's made a huge difference.
Yeah. Well, yesterday we had the opportunity of our open house where
Yes.
our president-elect, Karen Key, she gave us an address where her idea is, you know, passing along that key to unlock somebody's potential. So you being a past IREM Georgia president, what was your why, and how did you accomplish that during your presidency?
Sure. We had a couple of challenging years, 88 in particular, and 89. Both of those were challenging years that had, particularly 89, where we actually had a president that resigned halfway through the year. And we have some financial issues. We had other concerns going on. And so as a part of the board, I got really invested in that. And that's one of the things that pushed me into putting myself up for being president. I was very, very honored because, again, kind of the redheaded stepchild of the property management industry are people that manage single family houses, particularly back then. It just was not a common component. In fact, I found out nationwide when I got my CPM that there was about 60 of us nationwide whose primary portfolio were single family homes. Very rare. So it was a high honor to me that the people in the chapter respected me and were willing to take a chance on me. And it was really, really a great opportunity. The leadership opportunities that IREM represents for folks, and the training that you get, and the opportunity to be of service is huge, absolutely huge. And I'm jumping ahead for answer one of the other questions, but it's absolutely the key to professional growth is being involved in this sort of thing. Volunteer leadership is completely different than working in your business, because working in your business, you can dictate more. Whereas in volunteer leadership, you have to have consensus building, team building. You have to have constant check-ins. Again, I had 35 committees, and I had 35 committee chairs, and I committed myself to check in with them once a month.
Wow.
And that made all the difference in the world in changing and turning things over. At the end of the year, we had made a profit, and we had put money back into the bank that we were able to use for the membership to produce more courses and do other things that would be a member benefit. So it was really, really beneficial. That was my why, to help put the chapter back right. So one of those things as a president, you always want to leave it better than you took it over. And so I was very honored to be able to do that.
Well, I know IREM Georgia is very near and dear to my heart, and I've been in it for the last, I think, 2 years now, two or three. And it looks like you definitely left it better than how you found it. There's so many great opportunities within IREM, and I've met so many great individuals just here in the IREM Georgia chapter alone.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So thank you for all of your hard work during those years.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. So kind of going off of that, you started the nationwide Industry Partners Program, earlier known as Friends of IREM, and now the VIP Valued Industry Partner Program. What gave you the vision to do this?
We needed money. We needed money. I'm serious. We were practically broke. And so we were looking around. It took us a year to try and figure it out, to get consensus among the chapter of what would work. And the key element was limiting it to only 2 vendors per category.
Wow.
That was huge because a lot of us had been members of the apartment association and BOMA and others that were very vendor heavy. And you would go to one of those meetings and there'd be a round table of 10 that you would sit at, and there'd be 2 property managers to 8 vendors. That's like, your blood in the water with sharks around you. That's not a fun meeting to attend. And plus, you don't really get the benefit of networking, or as Dr. Debbie likes to call it now, net weaving. Love Dr. Debbie. God, if we could
She's
bottle her
iconic.
energy, oh my goodness.
Absolutely.
I think the world would rain glitter.
Oh, she'd be a gazillionaire. She could do it on late night TV,
Oh yeah.
It's amazing. But I digress. That was the impetus for it and finding a way. Then the next thing was getting permission from IREM National, the board of directors, to pursue this as a pilot program that might be something beneficial chapter wide and even for IREM National. And sure enough, it worked. And the other thing that was vitally important is that 2 chapter members had to sponsor, if you will, the vendor that was applying. So these were not just anybody bellying up to the bar with cash. So it made a huge difference. We would sponsor a meeting in addition to being a friend of IREM, so they got to have a little spiel in front of the chapter. So all of that we developed and was able to get it put in place. So it was really, really fortuitous, right? And again, problem solving, because we didn't want to raise chapter dues.
Well, it's
So
an
it made a big
incredible
difference.
program. It's an incredible program, and obviously still exists today and is
Yes.
flourishing and thriving and all of that. So we're very thankful that you kind of got that started, and like I said, it's doing
Well,
great today.
I happened to be in charge at that time, but it was a lot of members who put forth great effort to put that together. So it's not all Michael at that point in time, I promise you. Just happened to be the one in charge at the moment. But it was very, very fortunate to have some really, really smart people, really good people working with me.
It takes a village, and
Yes, ma'am.
we love the community that IREM has given us and has given you, I'm sure. So we are, again, very thankful, and there are so many ideas that kind of get popped around, and it's just incredible to see all of the growth and the creativeness that everyone has to be a problem solver
Right.
and continue to grow and come up with new things for upcoming members.
Yes, ma'am.
Alrighty. Well, here's a fun question for you.
Okay.
Of all the years that you've been in IREM, Georgia, what is your favorite memory?
Well, I have a lot, but I think my favorite ones go back to the year I was president. In 1992, we saw an opportunity to really make a difference with the Atlanta Housing Authority. Atlanta Housing Authority was one of the worst in the country at the time. No, I mean, terrible reputation. So we talked with the director and said, if we can come up with scholarships for your people to attend what was then the Course 101, which is now RES 201, that led towards, back then it was called the accredited resident manager, before it became the accredited residential manager. And if we can come up with scholarships, will you send your people? And they said, absolutely, we'll do that. If it's produced locally, we'll even help you with utilizing one of our community rooms for you to hold the course. Worked great. We were able to get 40 scholarships from IREM Foundation for the Atlanta Housing Authority property managers, and we've offered 2 Course 101s, one in 92, one in 93, and we were able to educate, I think it was 36 or 35 property managers in the Atlanta Housing Authority.
That's
that
awesome.
was fun. That was really a give back to the community that was worthwhile. And I can't tell you how many chapters across the country were jealous of the fact that we got 40 scholarships from IREM Foundation for education. So
Yeah, yeah.
that worked out really well. Worked out really well. Also, I don't know. Again, you got to look in your history books here. But if you might remember, good old Ronnie Reagan said, "Mr. Gorbachev, tear down that wall." And very shortly thereafter, during the Bush one administration, the wall fell down. Well, in 1992, that was only a couple of years later. We at the chapter, we were honored to be able to host burgeoning property managers from Russia to visit Atlanta, and we set up a tour of several buildings, high rises, residential as well as commercial, and had them at a chapter meeting. It was with their translator. They coordinated their bus and all that travel arrangements and everything, but we've coordinated everything for them when they were in Atlanta, and that was an incredible event. Again, a lot of it was being in the right place at the right time, but like Dr. Greisman's theory, preparation and perspiration meets opportunity. We worked hard, we were prepared, we saw the opportunity, we could capitalize upon it. And that really made a those were two of my biggest, fondest memories of what I was able to do with IREM, then the Greater Atlanta chapter.
That sounds like an incredible opportunity there. I had no idea about that. I'd never known about that. So that's really cool to hear. And I bet that was a very exciting and,
It was tremendously exciting.
And one thing I want to touch on is the IREM Foundation. So you spoke a little bit about kind of what they will offer scholarships and stuff like that. So what an incredible opportunity for our members to be able to apply for that and continue their education. And just because it is all about learning and everything is changing. And so being able to continue that education and development and get those designations while being supported by the IREM Foundation is just incredible. So I wanted a quick plug there, but it is an
absolutely. Well, and well worth it. The foundation is incredible. Happy to contribute to it in some small way every year, and love the benefit that they give out to folks. Another thing that got started, I was able to serve on a couple of different committees and chaired a committee nationally. It was the publicity committee, public relations committee, and that was the one when they were doing the what's now the awards that they give out for the CPM of the year and all the other things nationally. Well, back then it was basically about forms and some of the companies and their stuff, and we would have that contest every year. But we also got to do and be a part of the first rebranding and a new logo that was developed in 1993. That was very exciting that I was able to be a part of that. And we came up with, because there used to be, education had this one way of doing the logo and the format, and then membership had a way, and these other folks had a way. There was no cohesiveness to it. So we came up with the thematic image. That sounds familiar, doesn't it, from your marketing classes?
Yes.
We came up with a thematic image. We redesigned the logo, and it's a completely different logo now. But that was a big deal because the logo prior had been around for 30 plus years. So I was very fortunate to be a part of that. But those kinds of opportunities are available to people. And I'm going to go ahead and jump to your last question because I know I have just talked my head off here. And my advice to folks about IREM and what I would recommend is that you immerse yourself in the organization. Make yourself available. Most of the time they will only ask once, maybe twice. If you don't take advantage of an opportunity, you're losing out. So I was very fortunate to take advantage of an opportunity. They created a single family one-day seminar. I applied for that to be able to teach that, got to go and audition for it. They invited me to do faculty training. I got to do that and the then Course 101. So again, opportunities. Same with taking that opportunity when they invited me to be on the publishing committee. back then, after the year after I get my designation. So there's a lot of cool things that you can do, but the leadership opportunities, the leadership education, the ability to network and get to know people all around the country, to build your own intra network about that you can always ask advice on. What's the best practices? Hey, I've never gone through this before. Have you? Great benefit. So not only are you giving back to the industry, not only are you giving back to the to IREM and the local chapter, or even nationally, the benefit that you get yourself outweighs that in many ways. So I am blessed beyond belief that the path that I've been able to take, that has been primarily afforded to me by IREM, particularly IREM Georgia. And I will tell you, there's one man in particular who's been an integral part of my path in IREM Georgia, and that's John Worthman. John and I, he did my original CPM interview for candidacy. And he he knew enough about single family that he could see that I knew what I was doing and that I had enough inventory to be able to justify being able to be a potential candidate, because the regulations were different then than they are now. And so I was very blessed that he took the risk, took the chance on me, and I was able to follow through. And I've done everything I could to honor his belief in me. And so big shout out to John. He's an instructor, a CPM emeritus now, just like I am. And by the way, I've turned in my instructor badge. I'm now an instructor emeritus, but it's because life has just gotten so busy and I wasn't teaching often enough, and it so became quite a burden for me to continue to teach that class, particularly with the updates that they were doing. So I appreciate all the opportunities that IREM has given me and the ability to give back, but the benefit that I've received from it has been immeasurable.
Absolutely. I know for myself, like when you get into a big community in a cohort like IREM Georgia itself, you get to meet so many different people. And I know you're a very busy person, and a lot of the people that are there are also very busy as well, but they take the time out of their day to come to these events and network and net weave, as Dr. Debbie would say, with people who are like-minded within the industry. And so you get to meet these people that you otherwise really wouldn't get to because they do have such busy schedules.
Yes,
really,
absolutely.
Really refreshing to, get to talk to people like you, but also talk to people who are just starting out in the industry like ourselves. So, and bridging that gap between the two. So IREM Georgia has definitely done that for me, and I really appreciate all the opportunities that I've had.
Well, I am just thrilled to be able to talk with the two of you and be a very small part of the beginning of your journey. So I really do appreciate y'all reaching out and giving me the opportunity to talk, I'm sure, far too long. So I appreciate that.
You're fine. You're fine.
But thank you so much. We really appreciate it. And we have learned so much about your wonderful story. And we're so thankful for all that you have done for the IREM community as a whole and beyond. And we just want to thank you again for stepping into the spotlight. And thank you. And hopefully we'll talk soon.
Yes.
Fantastic.
All right. Bye, everyone.
See you later.